And again, FAIRtax Power Radio is most pleased to dive into Walle's FAIRtax world with our Colorado CPA friend Jade Walle. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Great to see you, Bob.
All right, I see you're still working from home. Everything still going well out there?
It is. Things are going well in Colorado. Things are starting to open up at a new hybrid work model for sure.
Okay. Well, I've got to be honest with you here. When I first saw the subject matter that you have chosen to dig into today, it kind of raised a couple eyebrows.
No.
You've chosen to talk about income inequality. Okay. But I'm really curious to see, that is a really highly charged political talking point of progressive politicians. And I'm really interested to see how you're going to work our nonpartisan, non-ideological FAIRtax into this particular topic. But let's just start right off the bat and define precisely what you're talking about so everybody's on the same page.
Sure, Bob. Income inequality refers to the extent to which income is distributed in an uneven manner among a population. For example, in the U.S., as of last year, 2020, the top 1% of earners accounted for about 20% of all income earned in the entire country. The first quintile, or 20% of U.S. wage earners, represent about 52% of all U.S. income. Mm-hmm. Now, to be clear, today we're not talking about we are talking about high-level income inequality, but we're not talking about another often discussed alleged phenomenon known as the gender pay gap. And you might have heard about this, right? Mm-hmm. For example, although the 2016 Clinton campaign stressed that women should make as much as men, the Clinton Foundation's public 990 tax forms, which lists out its highest paid employees, revealed an enormous men versus women pay gap. This pay gap was so wide that the Clinton campaign worried that the huge discrepancies would be noticed by journalists, according to internal Clinton campaign emails exposed by WikiLeaks a couple years ago. So for the Clinton Foundation, the men averaged $291,000 in pay, and the women $210,000 in pay. Again, wow. we're not talking about any perceived gender pay gap today. That's a different topic of what I just discussed. But I would highlight, in defense of the Clinton Foundation and other organizations accused of having gender pay gaps, many of the foundation's men clearly outrank the women in the leadership team of which these statistics were based. So, like, general instead of a lieutenant type of thing. Yeah. So the lesson there is, let's be careful when we're spoon-fed gender pay gap data, because the analysis is broad and clumsy. A more thoughtful and appropriate comparison would be all male versus female directors with 2 years experience in their role, for example. Analyzing this pay data would be much more meaningful. However, we're not here to drive through the obvious statistical inadequacies of gender pay gap data, but to discuss the broader economic concept of income inequality.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess the concept that the men are the generals and the ladies are the lieutenants is an entirely different discussion that they can have at some other time. But okay, I think I pretty well...
Right, that was the Clinton Foundation. That's the way they set it up.
Okay, I think I understand what we're talking about, but something's really not clicking here in the old brain. I cannot think of a single society anywhere in all of recorded history where there was such a thing as, income equality. And this is just my old way of thinking. It does not seem like income inequality is a problem that needs fixing. To me, anyway, it just seems like a natural byproduct of the fact that people are different. I mean, face it, some people are smarter than others. Some people have better work ethics than others. We have different interests, abilities, aptitudes, and all. And if, for example, and jobs are different. It takes a lot more education and specialized training and intelligence to be a CPA than it does to be a garbage collector. And anybody, in my book anyway, that would look at the disparity between a CPA's salary and a garbage collector's salary and see that as a problem that needs fixing is living in the twilight zone. So, are we on a fool's errand here to try to achieve this income equality? And why are people so focused on this when it just seems to be, a natural, byproduct of the way things are?
Great insights, Bob. Great questions. And if I put my psychologist hat on, like last quarter's discussion, let me dive into this deeper for a moment.
Okay.
First, throughout human history, societies have predominantly been composed of an elite ruling class. Call it bourgeois, royalty, military leaders, or a despot. And the vast majority of people or serfs and peasants, the proletariat, if you will. And like, think of India and the caste system. Of course, there have been horrible acts committed against people within the lower classes throughout human histories. So at no point is today's conversation an endorsement for one historical or modern day class of people over the other. In today's America, however, the past centuries of being born into privilege or serfdom with no ability whatsoever to change your station in life has mostly vanished. Don't get me wrong, there are and always will be small pockets or subsections of life where it is very difficult to escape the vortex of single parent households, abuse, lack of education, crime, etc. However, the United States, relative to the world's civilizations over history, has and continues to present more opportunity than any other society in all of Earth's history.
Okay, well, that kind of leads into with all of the opportunity that abounds here in the United States. Why are the income inequality statistics in America so stark, and why are there so many people thinking it's a problem?
Well, I haven't answered your question very good, but I've set the stage. You asked
Okay.
if pursuing income equality was a fool's errand. Let me
Mm-hmm.
use the Socratic method and lead us both to the correct answer by presenting a series of questions and data sets. So, one, we've established that the U.S. has produced the largest middle class in human history, more opportunity and more education for the masses than any country on earth for over 10,000 years. Two, we also cited the statistics early on how the top 1% of American earners took in 20% of total U.S. income. Three, our society and people, as well as our Christian foundations, celebrate the diversity of people that God created. Each person, all 7 billion plus in the world, are uniquely made and crafted for a special purpose, and no two people on earth are alike. It's a miracle in and of itself. Each person has a different background, different education, different inherent personality, a different set of ambitions or lack thereof, a different ability to learn from mistakes and advance, and a multitude of other unique traits that makes that person special. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. And it seems that your political ideology would have no effect on seeing that we're all different, we're all unique, we're all special, and as the Bible says, wonderfully made. And so go ahead from there.
So, if the US has more opportunity than any country in history, but also has prominent income inequality and a population full of 330 million distinctive, unique, and remarkably different people, what does this say about the prospects for income equality?
Probably not too good. But I got a feeling you fixing to dig in a little deeper and educate us all.
Well, I don't know about educate, but I think you're correct. My conclusion, given the aforementioned agreed upon facts, is that it is offensive to suggest that anything other than income inequality would be the norm for any properly functioning free society. To assume that we can take millions of people and relegate them to being exactly the same as someone else, such that they should make exactly the same amount of money, is repulsive, even when performing the same job at the same level and at the same company. At my accounting firm, we have what we call a pay for performance mantra, a culture where people are motivated to perform and execute at a high level because the rewards will be greater. Notwithstanding the offensively non-diverse notion that large groups of uniquely different people should earn the exact same amount, this idea completely eliminates a human being's unique contributions, ideas, differences in effort, leadership qualities, and actual performance results. And this idea also is demonstrably obtuse in its lack of understanding of the diversity of each situation that an employee deals with, be it in client interactions, on the assembly line, or in the drive-through lane's efficiency and courtesy. At the
Okay.
McDonald's you just went to before today's call.
Yeah, that works. Well, that makes complete sense to me. Actually, there would be no, surer or faster way, I think, to stifle innovation and prevent people from achieving excellence by just saying everybody's going to get the same thing. That doesn't make. We've got some remarkable inventions here: submarines, airplanes, spaceships that we've come up with, and we've got another generation that supposedly is going to come up with even bigger and better things. I mean, it would be neat to look back 150 years from now and see all of the common everyday things in that society that we're not even thinking of right now. And if you're going to suppress that kind of creativity by making everyone make the same, if the garbage collector makes the same as the CPA, then people will not choose to be CPAs because that's a lot harder. So, if we're going to have this communist inspired Soviet Union type kind of system with income inequality, that does not sound like a very good thing to me.
I completely concur. And one last thought. You asked me why so many of our elected officials are fixated on supposedly addressing income inequality. My
Hmm.
theory is that in all these past civilizations, for centuries after century, one truly didn't have any conceivable way outside of a fairy tale to move from the ranks of the 99.9% of poor people into the courts of the royals, into the bourgeois. Because of this inability to move one station in life, there was acquiescence, and people were generally resigned to the fact that their life is what it was going to be. However, in our great American experiment, for the first time ever, one could legitimately blaze their own trail and create their own companies,
Hmm.
products, and empires. However, when the American dream doesn't work out, and remember, it's a promise to have opportunity and to be able to pursue happiness, but not necessarily catch up with it, there is a natural human tendency to revert to the deadliest of the seven deadly sins, which is,
Envy and jealousy. They're
and,
kind of the same
and
thing there.
yes, that's
So,
exactly right.
so what you're saying is when our dreams don't work out and we know that we have just done our best and we've tried to make the best of the opportunity that we have and didn't, achieve the same level of success that somebody else looks at, it's just kind of naturally, human nature to try to envy or be jealous of someone who has been more successful than we are. Is that it?
You're exactly right. Despite the fact that those 1% of Americans who earn 20% of all income create millions of good paying jobs that allow so many of us to reach a level of income and earnings and middle class status that the world has never known, and despite the fact that they've created some of the most innovative products that drastically improve our lives and the efficiency of our daily routine, despite all this, we're still a jealous and envious lot of human beings. And
Uh-huh.
I heard someone say, Bob, you like that. If we cannot even engineer to the point of ensuring two siblings from the same parents in the same household end up at the same station in life with the same prospects, motivation, performance, and monetary earnings, how can we naively believe we could possibly engineer society as a whole to have an
Hmm.
equality of outcome? It's a great point when I hear it put this way. And
Uh-huh.
this cancerous envy manifests itself all the way up into our very high levels of our government, and the resulting effect is a never-ending quest for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, more commonly known as income equality.
Okay, well, this is Wally's FAIRtax world. I want to see how you're going to work the FAIRtax into this.
Okay.
Go.
So we've established that as long as there are diverse people, there will always be diversity of outcomes, diversity of personality, and diversity of performance. And as a result, diversity in what people earn throughout their lifetimes. Like your example with the trash collector or the CPA, although sometimes I feel I might be a little less valuable than the trash collector. So the
Yeah,
real question is,
wait till the sanitation union goes on strike and see who everybody wants to.
right.
Go ahead.
Exactly. I vote for them being more valuable. So the real question is, which system of taxation would allow for even greater mobility along the spectrum of life stations that this incredible country offers? Which taxation system would create more opportunity and result in less burdensome bureaucratic obstacles to achieving success in the American dream?
Okay. I think that's a fair question, and I think everyone here at this program has a particular taxation system in mind that would kind of meet that goal. We won't steal your thunder here. This is your program, Wiley's Fair Tax World. So, does this particular tax system you're thinking of start with an F?
I like where you're headed, Bob. I like where you're headed. The current income and payroll tax system is incredibly unwieldy and impossible to navigate with around 77,000 pages of rules, regulations, and court rulings. The current system is so complex, it truly inhibits many people's ability to advance in their entrepreneurial endeavors because they can't afford an army of tax attorneys and accountants to help them and their business succeed. The tax returns are a nightmare, and the invasion into one's personal effects, records, and monetary affairs is without shame. However, the fair tax is a simple, efficient, and visible way to collect the same revenue currently brought in by the IRS, but done anonymously at the cash register when we buy new goods or services at the retail
Hmm.
level. The fair tax is only ever collected once at this point, and over 90% of all businesses will not have to worry about taxes since a business's sale to another business, which is the majority of businesses, by the way, is not a retail sale and no fair tax would be collected.
Well, that sounds like a good idea to me. uh, what other ways would this thing you call the fair tax help out?
The intellectuals of our country note that there are various ways to reduce income inequality, and a few of these ways that I think we might agree with are education, increase economic inclusion, higher incomes, and a fair and transparent tax system. So these are four areas the elite say that we could really, reduce that gap.
Okay, so I understand the point of education. If you give your trash collector enough education, he can become a CPA. You give enough education in enough time. So how would the fair tax help with education?
Access to high quality education is a globally recognized solution to to ending the cycle of poverty. So those living below the poverty line will generally likely be more likely to keep their children out of school, which means that their children and their children will also have a greater chance of living in poverty. So if education is one of the largest keys to climbing out of poverty, in AKA reducing the income gap, let's think about our taxation systems. The fair tax allows you to bring home your entire paycheck, pre-tax, so to speak, relative to the income tax system, where you have to, let's say on average, 25% of your income removed from you in the form of payroll and income taxes, meaning if you made $10, you'd end up with $7.50 in your pocket to pay for your life's needs, including college. Under the fair tax, when you earn $10, your take-home pay is the entire $10, which can be used on college instead of only $7.50. And actually, with the prebate that the fair tax has, you'll have more than $10 in your pocket to pay for college.
Okay.
The fair tax treats college education as an investment, meaning there would be no fair tax charged on college education. Also, with the fair tax, studies show that the embedded taxes will drop out of the current prices we pay for goods and services, including college education, by at least 10 to 15%. So when we add all of this up, education will be on average 40% less costly under the fair tax relative to the income tax.
Wow.
This is a game changer, and not just changes on the fringes, but a way to unlock the door of education to millions who would not have had a chance before the fair tax.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's definitely one of the most innovative ideas I've ever heard. We've heard the fair tax called a jobs bill. We've heard that now it's really a promoting education bill, and make this post-secondary education, which has been the price of which has been growing faster than the inflation rate for as long as I've been breathing, just about. So introducing the fair tax into this educational realm looks like a really good idea. What about the other items you mentioned?
Sure. The other items, which were economic inclusion, higher incomes, and a fair and transparent taxation system, all fall right into the wheelhouse of the fair tax. Numerous studies show that the three things promote economic growth. Those being: one, replacing the income tax with a consumption tax; two, replacing a graduated rate system with a flat marginal tax rate system; and three, lower marginal rates and a broader tax base. The fair tax nails these three musts for economic growth head on. And by all measures, extensive studies show that the fair tax will increase real GDP, domestic investment, capital stock, employment, real wages, consumption, and the granddaddy of them all, purchasing power, which is basically what is left in your pocket at the end of the day after you pay your taxes, buy your goods, receive your fair tax prebate, and earn your wages. The fair tax wins on all of these critical economic statistics, creating the world's tax haven, along with untold new investment, factories, headquarters, and of course the need for even more good-paying jobs. And of course, with more good-paying jobs created, more and more are able to escape poverty and decrease the income inequality gaps discussed earlier.
Well, that reminds me of a little animation I see on some of the YouTube videos I like to watch. That's amazing. Sounds like there's almost nothing the fair tax can't do better than the current system. But we have heard, I got to get you to address this. There are other intellectuals in there, they're espousing other ways other than the fair tax to combat what they're calling this income inequality problem. And, I don't know if I'm going to buy any of that or not. Do you care to address any of these other theories that are floating around out there?
Sure, Bob. Other ways to supposedly reduce income inequality include wealth redistribution, steeper inheritance taxes, redistribution of land to all citizens equally, and a higher punitive graduated progressive tax system.
Have you been reading the Communist Manifesto?
I know. I think it's taken from the
That sounds like
front
that
page.
came straight from that particular document.
I think you're exactly right. And Bob, the state with the worst income inequality in our country, do you know which state it might be?
Probably New York, California, Illinois, one of those.
Yeah, you're right. New York is the state within our 50 states that has the worst income inequality when you look at it on a state by state basis.
Hmm.
And when you think about this, they're wholeheartedly embracing these other purported ways to address income inequality, and I think that's ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, I've always thought it was ironic that the ones that are preaching to the about income inequality are the ones that have seven mansions, seven-figure incomes, private jets, and all that and whatever. And they're lecturing us on how bad income inequality is. What other effects are there of implementing their solutions to this problem?
Well, regarding wealth redistribution, the results are temporary and have other long-term detrimental effects that end up hurting our society. The concept of steal from the rich and give to the poor is romanticized in literature and in modern day socialism. However, wealth redistribution eventually leads to self-loathing because humans are made to accomplish things, blaze new trails, be leaders, parents, and mentors. When we
Hmm.
receive assistance beyond a short-term nature, and I'm not here to espouse that we should have no assistance. Sometimes people need a hand up. And I remember many stories from the 60s and 70s and 80s where, sometimes bad things happen in life and someone needed to be on welfare for a couple months and it helped
Hmm.
them, but they were so thankful and they were so anxious to get off of that so they could get back accomplishing things because that's the way we're all wired as human beings. So, when we receive assistance beyond like just say a short-term hand up, we're
Hmm.
not meeting our base human needs in this regard, and we begin to hate ourselves. That's self-loathing. This leads to divorce, abuse, broken families, unsteady job history, lack of education, and a general deterioration of the civil society. The intent to redistribute wealth ends up hurting the job creators, eliminates jobs, and ultimately damages the psychological foundation of so many of our people. The
Hmm.
same basic concepts can be said for increased inheritance taxes, theft of, or excuse me, land redistribution to all citizens equally, and a high punitive graduated tax system. These so called solutions actually drive our country further away from the very goals of income equality they supposedly seek out. So, in conclusion, the fair tax is the absolute best system of taxation available to allow for our great country to be even greater, to get out
Hmm.
of the way of our people, so to speak, and allow even more realization of the American dream and a reduction in income inequality all in one fell swoop.
Indeed. I have heard it said that if somebody could just wave a magic wand and suddenly everybody had an equal amount of stuff, everybody's bank account was the same, within a fairly short order, things would revert back to the way it is now because the people that are on the upper end of the economic scale now would keep doing the things that put them there. People on the lower end of the economic scale would keep doing the things that put them there. So this, even if you could have instant inequality and perfect inequality, it would not last hardly at all. I got to give it to you. I wasn't sure when we started this discussion that you'd be able to bring the nonpartisan, non-ideological fair tax into what has been a pretty, hot and heavy, politically charged button. You did it, my friend. I'm proud of you.
Well, I think, thank you, Bob, and I think you're exactly right. Listen, this speaks to the wonderful diversity of our human species. Everyone's different, and if everyone got the same share of everything in our country, to your point, I don't know if it would be within 6 months or 2 months, but the distribution would all of a sudden be different again, and the top 1% would be earning the top 20% of income. That's the diversity of people. Some people are wired to be those innovative CEOs and make a few $1,000,000, and you know what? We should be happy about that. Now,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if you abuse your leadership roles and if you abuse people, and like in the late 1800s, when admittedly workers were treated pretty badly,
Mm-hmm.
we can evolve out of that and have better systems. But ultimately, the market and the free market kind of drives towards that. And as long as we're increasing our society's education, we can
Yeah.
avoid those natural human tendencies to sometimes take advantage of our leadership position. But 98% of the time, at the end of the day, we want those leaders to come up with things like rocket fuel, Kitty Hawk with Orville and Wilbur Wright. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
have done that. I don't know how much lift is needed and speed to get something to float in the air. But I'm really glad that we came up with that, and I'm really glad to pay the creator of the iPhone $1,000 for my iPhone, even though just saying that out loud, it sounds ridiculous, but it's really helpful. It's a helpful tool. And, great ideas, great performance, pay for performance, like in my accounting firm.
Mm-hmm.
It is an appropriate response because it drives even more great performance, even more innovation, even more creativity to help all of us have better lives. So I completely agree with what you just said there. And again, this is nonpartisan. The fair tax it should be embraced by all sides of the aisle because it helps people. And if this side of the aisle or that side of the aisle is truly about helping people, they should embrace the fair tax.
Okay, well, if we're really, really good at it, we can be able to afford a ride up into space, like they had this. What Bezos was and a couple others, just an 11-minute rocket ride. Almost $30 million. Excuse me, if I remember right. That would be cool to be able to do that.
I'm on board. Let's you and I get a ticket together.
Hey, let's do it. All right.
And I think Ron Malera should buy our ticket.
I think Ron Malera should go with us.
Okay.
Oh, he gave you the big thumbs up there. He wants to ride into space just as well. But okay, excuse me. But this has been an interesting discussion. As I said, I wasn't sure you could pull it off, but you did. So we'll see what happens 3 months from now at our next foray into Walle's Fair Tax world. And thanks you so much for talking with us.
Hey, Bob, anytime. I really enjoyed it. This was a fun one.
All right, we'll do it. See you later.
Bye-bye.